Hi, it's Ankita. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, hi, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to talk about a few books that I recently bought. If you have been here on my channel for a long time, you know that I love my classics. Most of the books that I bought are classics, and some of them are modern classics. So let's dive into these books. The first one is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I absolutely loved this cover. It's an Oxford World's classic. I don't own any of Oxford classics, so I'm really excited to have this. So one thing that I really look for when I'm buying classics is books that have introduction, notes, because when you're reading classics, there are so many things that you want to look up because they are so out of date. Sometimes it's regarding politics, sometimes authors make references to other works of their time and you might not be familiar with those works. So it's always good to have an edition which has notes in them. So I'm really glad that this one does have notes, and it also comes with an introduction, which is always great. Now, I'll be honest, I don't always read introduction. I sometimes read the text and then read introduction because I've found that sometimes reading introduction just spoils the fun of reading a book, or it changes your perspective. So there have been times when I have read introduction after I finished the book. I don't know, it's different for everyone. It might seem weird that I read introductions later on, but yeah, introductions can sometimes change your perspective. It might raise your expectations, and I just want to at times jump into classics without having those preformed notions and just, form my own opinion. So let's talk about why I picked this book. I read Elizabeth Gaskell's North and South for the very first time this year, and that's the first book I've read by her. And I was just blown away by her writing. I was blown away by the plot and the story and the characters in there. So I was like, I want to read all of Gaskell's books. And I went into the bookstore looking for Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. I couldn't find it, and this always happens to me whenever I'm looking for a classic. Whenever I make a list of classics and walk into a bookstore, it just so happens that they don't have that particular. It's just been my experience. So I was like, okay, if they don't have Cranford, I'll pick this one up because the premise really it sounded good. I anyway want to read all of her books, so I might as well, pick this one up next. So this one follows Molly Gibson. She's the daughter of a doctor in a small provincial town, and her widowed father marries a second time to give Molly the woman's presence he feels she lacks. But until the arrival of Cynthia, her dazzling stepsister, Molly finds her situation hard to accept. And intertwined with the story of the Gibsons is that of Squire Hamley and his two sons. It's about Molly falling in love and her learning to judge people and all of that. So through Molly's observations, the hierarchies, social values, and social changes of early 19th century English life are made vivid in a novel that is timeless in its representation of human relationships. I have no doubt that this will be excellent, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. I got this book from, I have the receipt in here, so let me look it up real quick. I got this from Hatchards in Piccadilly. It is such an amazing bookstore to buy classics. They have amazing classics collection, and if you ever visit London or if you live near London, do visit this bookstore, especially if you are into classics, because they have amazing classics collection. Really good. And they also gave me a bookmark, which I think is something that should be really appreciated. I love when independent bookstores send you away with a free bookmark. Yeah, there's something really special about giving readers bookmarks. And it's such a pretty one too. The next one I got is Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of the book cover, but I love Penguin Classics for a reason, and that is they have amazing notes. Again, the same thing. If and whenever you pick a classic, unless you've read it and you are rereading it and you want to collect a book, then you can go for the fancy editions. But really, if you want to understand the text, understand what's going on, study the text, then go for any edition that comes with notes, and I would highly recommend the Penguins Classics edition. This is not my first Charles Dickens, but this is one of those books that I've heard you either like or completely dislike. I'm someone who really doesn't care so much for the plot unless it's a mystery and a thriller. I don't care so much for the plot. I really like Charles Dickens's ability to build characters, the way he describes the characters and he describes the situations and times, when the Victorian times and the hardships during those times. In general, I just like his writing, so I am always blown away by his writing. I read a few of his books. I've read David Copperfield when I was a teenager. I really don't remember a lot about it, but I liked it at the time, but it was not my favorite. I've read Pickwick Papers, which is so far my favorite Charles Dickens book, like a novel. But his favorite work of mine is Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol is a story that is so dear to me. And then I've also read Oliver Twist, again when I was a teenager, and I don't remember a lot about him. So it has been years and years. I've read his Great Expectations as well, a book that I do intend to reread because to me it wasn't really outstanding, but I know a lot of people like it way more than I liked it at the time when I read it. So maybe I'll appreciate it more now than the first time that I read, which was years ago. Anyway, the reason I picked up Charles Dickens is because now that I'm living in the UK and closer to London, there is a Charles Dickens tour in London, which I want to participate in because I'm such a fan of Dickens and I don't want to miss out on that opportunity of taking the tour. And yeah, so here I am reading Our Mutual Friend, and just to give you like a little bit of a background of what this is about, is it centers on an inheritance and around John Harmon, presumed drowned when a body is pulled out of the Thames, and then a dustman, Mr. Finn, to whom the fortune defaults. And it's a satire in which Dickens portrays a dark London inhabited by disparate characters, as Gaffer Hexam, who scavenges river for corpses, and then the enchanting Bella Wilfer, the social climbing Veneerings, and unscrupulous street traders Silas Wegg. So that's something really amazing about Charles Dickens, is that he writes amazing characters, complex, relatable. So this is richly symbolic in its vision of death and renewal in a city dominated by the fetid Thames and of the corrupting power of money. So this is going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to it. It's really huge. It is around, okay, it is 800 pages. This is 800 pages in this edition, and the font is extremely tiny, but it is Dickens after all, and it shouldn't be difficult to get through this. I hope so, fingers crossed. The next one I got is Anthony Trollope's Can You Forgive Her? I again loved the cover of this book. It's just so beautiful. It's amazing how these two characters, they are facing each other, but they're not looking at each other. There's something so telling in their postures and it is just a stunning cover. Again, another Penguins classics. This one I got from, I think I got this from the Waterstones. Yeah, this one I got from Waterstones in Piccadilly. That Waterstones is huge. So many books, so well organized. Although I did find that the classic section was not as good as it is at Hatchard's. So just heads up. But then I think they had a really big thrillers and mystery section, just huge, which was amazing. Just excuse all the background noise. This is my first Anthony Trollope, and I went for this one because it just sounded really interesting. It's about a girl who has two suitors and she's kind of torn between who to commit to. It also introduces us to another character, Palliser. And this is the first book in that series. It's a part of a series. This is the first novel in the Palliser series. So far, I am liking it. It is definitely a page turner, and it is also, despite of this being a Victorian book, it is so easy to read. So far, I am loving the plot, and I'll keep you updated on how this goes. Okay, the next book that I recently bought is Middlemarch by George Eliot. It is a lovely edition. This is the Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition. I absolutely love it. But if you have never read Middlemarch and this is the very first time you're picking it up and you are looking for notes, then do not buy this edition. I would recommend that you buy the Penguin Classics one, or there's a Norton Critical one that has amazing notes. Having said that, even though it doesn't have notes, I do love this copy. I am reading this with my friend, and it is really helpful that I'm reading it with her because this book really does require a lot of motivation to read it because the text is very dense, extremely dense. However, the characters so far, I've only read the first book in this. It's divided into 8 books in total, and I've read the first book and I'm loving the characters so far. I don't really love the characters, but they are complex, they are relatable, and this is one of those books that is said that you should read once in your lifetime. So I'm glad that I am reading this book, and I'm really looking forward to finishing this up, and I am going to actually review this book with spoilers because I feel there's so much to talk about in this book. So keep your eye out for that video. I don't want to give away too much about this book. It's just a book that you should go into really blind. Just jump into it, pick it up, make it a mission of yours to finish this book because you will learn some life lessons in this. I've read only book 1 and I already think that this is a book that you should really read at least once in your lifetime. I think it's a book for everyone and you should read it. Very good. This one I got from Amazon. Moving on, I was in London and I was in Brick Lane and I had only a few minutes before heading back home, and I really wanted to buy an atmospheric book, a book to read in October. I walked into Brick Lane bookshop and I had my mind set up on buying The Haunting of the Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I have been dying to read since last year. And the bookseller, she told me that she only had 1 copy and she sold it like just a few hours before I walked into the store, and I was heartbroken. But then she said she had another Shirley Jackson, and I was pretty sure she was gonna say she had We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which I've already read. I love it. I've already read. I didn't want that copy. I really wanted The Haunting of the Hill House. But then she came out with this book, The Lottery and Other Stories. Immediately I said, I'm taking that one. I knew that The Lottery is one of the best short stories by Shirley Jackson. And guess what? I read it. It is amazing. It's just so good, and it's a story you should read during this time of the year. The thing about Shirley Jackson is that her text is so light and fluffy. There's this kind of like a cheerfulness to her writing, but the story she tells is dark. It's so dark. And those are the kind of stories that really astonish and really horrify and terrify me, because she writes about human fault. So far, the books that I've read haven't been about supernatural. Yeah, there are some occult symbolisms in her stories, but really what she tries to portray is the horrifying side of the human psyche. And that to me is more horrifying, terrifying than ghosts and apparitions and the supernatural and the unknown. Not that I don't find that fascinating, I do, but I think Shirley Jackson does psychological thrillers and horrors so well. So far, I've read 2 stories, and one of them was The Lottery, and it is the best story. It is not, I think it is hardly 10 pages, so, or maybe less than that. It is so good. I highly recommend it. I wish there were more editions of her books, but yeah, I just got this one. This is the Penguin Modern Classics, which is not bad. I like the book cover, but Shirley Jackson is my favorite author when it comes to horror and psychological thrillers. And the next one and the last one that I bought is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This is about a governess, a young governess, who moves to a country house to govern 2 children, right? 2 orphans, Miles and Flora. And while she's there, she notices something that is truly off. She starts seeing ghosts in the house, at the estate, and she believes that the children are keeping a secret. Yeah, it goes from there. I really don't want to say much about this because I would be like giving away the plot. Oh, I'm saying that because I already finished this book. Don't worry, I'm not giving away any spoilers. I have mixed feeling about this book. It is said to be the greatest classic. It is said to be one of the greatest ghost stories out there. And that's exactly what I was expecting, is that it to be more about ghosts and it to be terrifying. And it was terrifying. However, I want to tell you that this is not what you would normally expect. It is more of a psychological horror. And it is a tragic tale. I don't know how to process it. There was definitely this buildup of mystery and this thrill. And I just kept waiting for it till the very end. And then the ending seemed kind of unfinished. It left me hanging. You're left wondering what really happened. It's a book that makes you reflect on everything that had happened. So it's good in that sense, but I'm still trying to process if this really is one of the best ghost stories I've ever read. The text was extremely dense. I mean, the text really slowed me down, but like I said, the sense of like that build up, the building of thriller was really good, because I really wanted to know what happens next. But there are so many different things that the author is trying to imply, and you realize that only after you've finished the book. I don't know if this is a masterpiece. Maybe it was one of the best books during the times. I don't know. I don't think this book is for everyone. First and foremost, the text is very dense. It really slows you down when you don't want to, when you want to know what happens next. But I loved the setting. I loved the building up of the thrill. So it's a good one, but it is definitely not a 5-star read for me. You know, if you're not into classics and you want to get the same thrill as you might get from reading this book, I would recommend reading Shirley Jackson's book. I would recommend reading We Have Always Lived in the Castle. The Haunting of the Hill House, I'm pretty sure, is just as good, even though I haven't read it. And if you are short of time and you still want that thrilling aspect and that horrifying aspect of reading a horror, Beat the Lottery. Less than 10 pages, just amazing, amazing storytelling, horrifying. So that was my book haul and a very brief review of The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do let me know in the comments down below if you have already read any of these books or if any of these books interest you. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and like this video. And I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.